looks like we're 2:30 on the dot. Last class of the evening. Thank you very much for coming. I'll try not to have anyone fall asleep. So, this is always disconcerting because it seems to take it a while to load, and if it has to do this every time I switch out to the internet, I may not do it quite that way. But, okay, so we're here for reading European handwriting. And so, I'll just dive in and say your quick secret is, reading handwriting is something you learn by doing. There. We've got some time left, so no, I'm not gonna like throw y'all out in there with that, but that's the quick and dirty secret to reading handwriting, is it's something you have to work with and work over and repeat a lot of times. So let's see, that one went out of sequence. There we go. Let me we'll go backspace. There we go. So what am I gonna talk about? We've got some general considerations, and that's when I do any of these genealogical lectures. I usually say, hey, what should you think about first before you even get started? Because you'll have a better time that way. You're prioritizing, you're setting goals. The other thing is going to be a quick and incomplete history of European alphabets, because if I talked about all of them, it would be about a 3-part talk at least. So I'm going to tell you about sort of, shall we say, the major ancestors. And if you're curious, you can do research beside that. And then the last part is going to be advice on resources for particular countries and languages scripts. I'm not on most of these going to go letter by letter. Occasionally you will see examples of what to do, but this is basically so you can teach yourself to get to the resources that will do that, because that's what we have the room for in an hour. So the considerations I sometimes start with is, where is your document from? And when is it from? And who wrote it? And what kind of document is it? One of my other hats a long time ago was a newspaper editor, and who, what, where, why, when? So when? That's sort of the big thing, is what kind of handwriting is your document going to be in? Because if it's from Europe and say in the 1400s, it's going to be a lot different than one that's in Germany in the 1900s. And it might let you know what kind of language it's in also, because, sometimes I would say, particularly Germany and France, the Alsace-Lorraine, where they kind of traded hands back and forth, that sort of thing. Or when Italy had different dialects, you're not just dealing with Italian anymore, you're dealing with Tuscan. So who wrote it? Was it a clerical professional? Was it someone who had to write these things for a living? Were there several clerical professionals? Who here has worked with, say, marriage registers? You can see when you had a different clerk writing at different times, and sometimes they were really clean, and sometimes, no, not that guy. Why did that guy get my ancestor's name? Was it the person who wrote it your direct ancestor? That's kind of worth considering, because a lot of people say, well, was that my ancestor's handwriting? And if you have a marriage affidavit before you, and the handwriting on most of the official looking stuff looks one way, and then the signatures are different, that can be something else. It's sort of a more powerful connection, I think, to your ancestors. Let's see, because the out of order slide was the one that let's see, so I think the one we're missing probably is where, but what kind of document are you looking at? And that'll help you determine if there's any kind of specialized language to look for. So if it's a legal document, you're going to look for legal terms or legal abbreviations. Is it a register of a vital event? So they might have, say, like for christenings, a little cross somewhere. Is it a letter? Is it a diary? Is the diary in code? Has anyone seen the show on HBO, Gentleman Jack, about the secret diaries of Anne Lister? She was a landowner in the 1800s in England, wrote her diary in code. So she was an interesting individual, I'll put it that way. So the other thing, how are you looking at this document? Is it on microfilm? Is it a scan of something from microfilm? Is it a scan of the original? Because anyone remember when we had Heritage Quest and Ancestry, And some of the censuses on Heritage Quest looked really good, and some of them did not, and the ones on Ancestry maybe didn't look better. And every so often you're going through Ancestry and it says, there are new images. And you're like, it's the same old census, what new images are these? Well, they would get better images of the scans. And sometimes if it's something that you've given up all hope on, you've only seen an old scan of it, maybe sometime you could get to the original, so that's worth considering. Now let's see if the backspace, because I'm thinking I'm gonna leap into, okay, there we go. The last one, which is, let's see, where? Okay, so think local, and that'll determine what language it's in, and that's gonna get you ready for idiosyncrasies of the language, and maybe to look for other tips and tricks about that language. You might wanna get a dictionary for this. If you don't wanna get a dictionary, I've got a slide coming up. You might wanna find someone who speaks or read the language if you don't. So that's another part of the language to consider. Okay, now quickly through the rest of these. So what we're doing quickly is paleography and orthography right now. Paleo is old, graphos is to write, ortho is correct. So you have old writing, you have correct writing. If you take photographs, you have light writing, that kind of thing. So when you've got different languages and things to consider, the part of the orthography is on Wikipedia, there's a good category called Latin script orthographies. I'm gonna see if this will throw me off too badly. Good. Site can't be reached. Okay, try about reloading. How's my signal here? No internet. Oh wait, it's trying again. We'll see how good it is in here. If it's not, then I won't talk too much about the websites and that'll throw me off a little bit. Okay, still not good. Okay, we just won't worry about that then. So, handwriting considerations across languages. So I would certainly get this slide from me because the links will work there. I always find some URLs to be really cumbersome and hard to type up. So if it's a cumbersome one, I will say email me and go here and get that because you can click on it where the internet works. So next. Diacritical marks. So these are the things above letters. If anyone knows any German and knows how umlauts work, umlauts don't really work that way. I think they've got it like over this O, but not that O. They've got it over the K. So they come from the Greek to distinguish, and they change the sound of the letter they're applied to. So if you know French, you've got like the accent aigu and the accent grave. You've got the cedilla that makes the C's sound like S's. And so these vary from language to language. So again, you want to know your language. The other thing you're going to have to worry about is abbreviations and archaic letters. So what's this thing here?
Ampersand.
Ampersand, what does it mean?
And.
Do you know where that's from? Anyone? So this is actually an E and a T shoved together. And in some of the older writings, you can see it. When I make ampersands, it looks like an E and a T shoved together because that means et, which is Latin for and. So someone got tired of writing and or et, and they got really fast with that. What's this? Anyone know?
Thorn.
Thorn, you got it. That is D. Where you will currently see it on old signs is ye old. It is not ye old, it is the old, and that's gotten lost. But that character comes down from runic, it's called a thorn. We'll see some of them later, so don't worry, we'll get some good examples. So abbreviations may look like diacritical marks, the things we just talked about, in the language that modify it, but they're abbreviations, and so make sure about that. They're also the hardest thing to decipher because I would love to give you a standard set of abbreviations. There's not one, just like there's no standard language. So look for context in your document. Look for charts, look for keys. If you're in the National Archives of England, they say, before you start doing this, here's a list of some abbreviations you may find. And see if anyone else has made a guide to similar abbreviations. So in abbreviations, you've got things called brevigraphs, at least for your old documents, and these are short abbreviations in Latin by scribes. So this is one I pulled from one of the books we'll talk about later, that one up there. So I wouldn't bother memorizing that, it's just for a picture. Ligatures are two letters joined together, and you see that a lot probably with E and T and other letters, just to save time for the scribes. And you also see things I call professional abbreviations, and that's if you're a lawyer, if you take vital records, if you're working the baptismal register, so that you're likely to see in Latin. So here's one I got. This is sort of the reading, handwriting, letter by letter portion of it, though not all the letters. So let's see. Oh, good. I can just be a shadow here. So someone sent this to us and they said, hey, can anyone read this? And everyone said, hey, Chris, read this. And so you've got, it goes okay, the case of Lady Hand Sokill, and then you've got James Ross. There's a special character. What's this? Esquire. I went looking for abbreviations in land documents and, found a bunch of modern ones. I did not find these, so I had to sort it out. So over here, what's this thing? Anyone? I'll tell you the letters. It's S and D. Said. It's a legal document. So it says, said lady in, notice there's our D, in the year. But notice also, we've got the over there. So I thought, why did they put the year 1744 instead of the year? And it's because I think this person was writing a legal document, and when you're doing these things, they're in the name of God. Amen. Said, indebted to. The other one on this is this word. M, superscript, the letter above, T, and then gauge, mortgage. I went looking straight up for mortgage abbreviations for about 10 minutes, and I didn't see it. So what I frequently see is names abbreviated this way. So when I say compare, work through the document, go back through it again, that kind of thing. So that's sort of a real world example, if you like. So in reading tips, like I just said, compare. If you have doubts about one letter, look for other examples and see if they match. And you'll sort of, you can do the first 5 letters, make a circle around the one you're not sure about, read through the rest, and maybe by the rest you'll be a little bit more sure. The other thing you can always do if you're transcribing it is leave a bracket, put a question mark, put a note to whoever comes after you to say, I'm not sure about this one, here's what I think it means. And work from the letters you can read to ones you can't. For place names, you might also look for a map if you know where the document is from, and then look at a map that's in the language where the document is from. Because Munich is a little bit different than München if you're trying to read it. Mm-hmm. And I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciations too badly there. So the other thing you might want to do is learn the strokes the average writer would have learned to make their letters. I'm a calligrapher and a pen geek, and this used to be a lot more heavy into that. But because we're reading European, it's been streamlined. But I'll, if anyone wants to ask about that kind of stuff, I'd be happy to talk about it later. If necessary, make a photocopy of it so you can trace out, or get a transparent sheet if you can't loud, and take something like a stylus or a pen and work over it. Because sometimes, if you've a certain generation, I still am, I was in the 3rd grade in about, 1983 or so. But we were still learning cursive then. People ask me every talk, what about the kids these days? Look in your bibliography in the packet. There are about 5 books about sort of the philosophical history of handwriting that cover this topic. The other thing is you may have to build an alphabet of that handwriting using every document you can get hold of. So if you've got a lot of documents by the same writer or scribe, that'll be good. A lot of books you see, like Kip Sperry's book on handwriting, which is sort of the standard general book, is a bunch of different alphabets. And then a couple sample documents, and then that's it. And we get back to that first slide where you learn by doing. So a quick writing utensil timeline, about 6th to the 19th century, you're going to see reeds or quills. That's the stuff from feathers. And then you get the invention of the printing press about 1440 in Europe. What do you get, at least in terms for family history, after the printing press? Anyone? Newspapers. Also, forms. Pre-printed forms. So sometimes you'll get a nice pre-printed form where it'll say births, deaths, whatever. Sometimes you won't, and the entire register will be written out, and all the dates will be written out too in Spanish. So if you don't know your Spanish and you don't know for 1829, then you need someone who knows that. But pre-printed forms are a nice boon for us. I mean, think about some of those old censuses in 1790. Pens with steel points, 1820. You don't have to sharpen your feather anymore. You won't see the quill getting all spattery anymore. Fountain pens, late 19th century and onwards. Ballpoint pens, 1938. So here's just a couple like quick little geeky things. So stripping a shaft of a quill, you don't need all those feathers really, and then lengthening the slit on the nib. If you get to that point, you can sometimes see where they get worn or they bend down or whatever. This is from about, I would say, early 20th century. It was an art and crafts book in England. So now family trees, because they have them too. So I'm not going to run through all of these, and you can see sort of, these are more Roman and Greek. And then unseal, if anyone's seen the Book of Kells, Visigothic, and you can see they sort of leapfrog over. Carolingian, that's another kind of, it doesn't quite go any, but it goes into Proto-Gothic. And then Textualis Quadrata, that will become a little bit more important when we get to German, because that goes over to Fractor. Humanist, they don't cover italic, which goes down from Humanist, but Times, say Times New Roman, the typeface. So on this is a sidebar to a quick Latin paleography resource. And if you go to the Wikipedia page on Carolingian minuscule, and this sounds like a secret password kind of thing, but seriously, fastest way I thought of to get here. The very bottom of it, it has this cumbersome URL. So I will see if I can get there. Let's see then. I'll have to escape here and go to Latin paleography. There we go. Let me go all the way to the beginning. It's not going to go up. Okay, there we go. There we go. This is by a professor of paleography in Spain who is selling his font package to you. Because he's selling the font package, it seems to be, free. I've looked for copyright. I've looked for please don't use this. Don't do a presentation with this in it. But what he gives you is that little quick truncated thing that, in fairly good detail, he will tell you he will tell you the orthography if you're dealing with old documents. But as we get down here, let's see if I can grab this sucker and go, it's not going. So if you want to see stroke by stroke for some letters, there you go. Also in your packet in the bibliography should be Medieval Calligraphy by Mark Drogan. That's another great one. I'm trying to get down into secretary hand, but I might skip to it. Let's see. Gradualis, cursive forms, and I think I'll just go back to the presentation. There we go. So let's see if we'll do this thing again, because if it jumps off again, I'm not gonna. Okay. So, but basically I would use that book if you've got something very old, or if you have something in the secretary hand in England in the 1600s. No, we're not going to jump to the PDF anymore, but luckily it doesn't seem to do that for the internet, so we won't worry about that. But since we have no internet signal anyway, which is odd because I could always just kind of go slide by slide, but it won't look as nice. Did we get it? There we go. Okay, we're back. So next, after that, Gothic script. So now we sort of, we went through that list. You've got the resources for that. This is called Black Letter or Old English. You'll also see for any of these different names I'm giving you, there's probably 2 or 3 other names and debates about those names. So this has really regular strokes without a lot of space between the letters, and you can cram more words into a space. It's supposed to be fairly clear, but it's sometimes not the most legible. And what Gothic did was sort of went from a more cursive style to this kind of very regular strokes, where literally you've got a diamond, the down part, and another diamond. And that will make you an I, or an M, or an N, or a U, or a V, depending on how they're joined up. So if anyone thinks their M's and N's look a lot alike, they look really alike in this hand. So here's a sample of it. This is actually partially in English and partially in Latin. We've got, let's see, so right there, there's a thorn. Here beginneth the words of the great, let's see, superscript and holy apostle Paul. And considering the godly living of all, that kind of thing. So this is in Middle English. So this is world. So this little thing here, that's an R, and it's called an R rotunda because you can cram that in, and you'll see other R's that aren't as short. But that's Gothic. And so if you've ever seen secretary hand, we will get to that. I won't go into this with all of them. Here's some more cursive forms. So they're not as tightly spaced, they're more rounded. This is a law treatise, I believe. Not law. It's natural history. And so what they've done, there's your page, there's your spine of your book right there. So what they did was they've got these little paragraph markers in there so you can find your way through this wall of text. At least you get capital letters in that hand. Anyone know Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales? Here's a manuscript of the Canterbury Tales. So you've got one that opera with his, let's see, I never remember that. Sure as suit the drop the marcha pelted to the route. But you can see it's not really, you've got all these curly cues, you've got tails, you've got a lot more space between the lines. It's curvy. These A's aren't short anymore. So you get into secretary hand, and it's English, German, Welsh, Gaelic, before italic or humanist cursive. It's faster than some writing systems, but not necessarily legible. A lot of people say, well, the secretaries wrote this. Shouldn't it be legible? What's the root of secretary? Secret. It's someone who keeps your secrets. You don't necessarily want it to be able to read. It's got some traits of Gothic. So remember where we were just at? So that T looks a little bit like it. That D, I see these kind of swoopy, backwards looking Ds a lot through all these hands. It's harder to do it that way. But you can kind of see how secretary hand comes down. And if you look at that PDF, you will see some of the strokes and how to read secretary hand. After that, you get down into humanist minuscule, and we're also getting into the invention of movable type. And the important thing about that is italic comes down from that. And it's faster, it has fewer strokes, it also slants at 85 degrees, so you're seeing that sort of slanted writing. And it's sometimes called chancery hand or chancelloresca, but it's not that chancery hand, it's the other chancery hand. There are two, and sometimes in those guidebooks you will see, here's the chancery hand, and it's the illegible one. So you can also see that in that, but here's a letter from Leonardo da Vinci to the Duke of Milan, not backwards, unlike the journals, so he could write backwards and forwards. Here's another that's in an illuminated manuscript, so you can see we're getting into legible territory, and it looks almost like what we call cursive. English roundhand then, also known as copperplate. And the big kind of famous example people use is the Universal Penman by George Bickham from 1741, and has the same slant as italic. So there's Bickham, there's his title page. Notice also though that we've got, Gothic script there, we've got the funky S's there, we've got lots of flourishes and stuff like that, but if you don't need flourishes, here's a letter sheet. So you've got, free legible running hand is indispensably necessary in all manner of business. So there's your letter sample there. German scripts. How many people came in here because they wanted to read German? I thought so. So instead of italic, Germans come down from Gothic. And you'll see Gothic handwriting, current schrift, or Alte Deutsche Schrift, Old German script. It's in use in the 1800s, but after that you'll see Suderland. And it says 35 to 41, and it's more like 1915 to 41. So here's current. It's a lot spikier. It looks like some of the cursive we just saw, but you'll notice it's got these line variations. You'll also notice it has 3 S's there, and that's apart from the double S, the azet. You'll see that J, capital J, small a, but at least C doesn't quite look like how we would think it would, but if you kind of take that Gothic C and tilt it on its side about that much, there you go. This is a little bit more legible, I find, than Suderland for some characters. So if you want to read German, this is the best book I have seen on handwriting, bar none. I am not even kidding. If all the languages that you're going to read had a book like this, none of us would be here, or someone would looking at an empty table, because there's nothing here. But I mean, I wouldn't be here. But anyway, the publisher URL is there. So if you look for Roger P. Minerd, German handwriting, this is the 2001 edition that I have handy, and it's great, and I understand that the one from 2013 is even greater. Let's see, how are we doing? Okay, we're doing okay for time. The sample page from the 2001 edition, I'll read here, but this is a quarter of the page, which hopefully should fall under fair use, and I just gave his book a big plug. So it says, for the S, there are 3 variants of this letter, and each has its specific purpose. If the scribe observes prevailing spelling conventions. Even though German spelling orthography was not standardized until the late 19th century, patterns use among these 3 symbols were quite consistent. So there you're getting a lot right there. The S is tall and deep up-down stroke, whereby the stem is not crossed as with the F. So that's something, if you're like, is this an S or an F? See, you also see it says C, let's see, can you see that little cursor thing? No, you can't. It says see similar and confusing characters on page 30. And there's, like I said, 18 pages on the alphabet, and German, Latin, and French. So the symbol is a forward loop below the midline, finishing, so that's how you actually make the character. So here's some, I cannot read this. I haven't studied the book that thoroughly. My cousin said, hey, could you get these will books over from Ostfriesland, where you're the family history library? And I said, sure, but I'm not quite going to be sure what I'm looking at, but you've got some kind of interesting diacritical marks there. I would probably spend a lot of time with this, more than I did when I was just killing time at the family history library. But there you go, at least pre-printed form, 1842, that's legible. Different hands, so I think that's Franz, and I'm not going to go through every letter, but you could kind of make that out, especially if you have either a key or that book. So this is in a different script, and I find this a lot more legible. So that's Maria Katerina, and this is from the same document even. So they didn't all write like that. That's another thing. If you think, oh, they all wrote in current, no, they didn't. And sometimes you get that good lucky one, which is far more readable. So here's Suderland, and developed in 1911, taught in German schools from 1915 to 41. And after 1941, not for a while, for the latent pleasantness in Germany in the 30s and 40s. But what letter is that? A. There you go. It's not open, it's not closed to the top. That's an A. What letter is that? Close. Nope. Your F was closer. That's an E. That is an E. So there's an E that kind of dips down below like that, and then there's the cross for the E. There you go. That's the small E. What letter is that? N. That's the small E. That's the small N. The only thing I could figure out is the small E, that line joins up there, and the N joins down there. So if I understand some German kids now learn to write Suderland and write to their grandparents with it because they think it's kind of cool. But so what about the handwriting besides German? And here's another joined together symbol that's called an interrobang, which is an exclamation mark and a question mark put together. So the excellent source, the other one I would say, if you take nothing else besides the German book from this course, is the BYU script tutorial page. And you can do the HTTP or just try script by byu.edu or just Google script tutorial page, BYU. I had this presentation die when it was a lot more laden with handwriting and printing stuff, and I just went to that page. Since I don't have the internet as well, we could try it again and see. We won't quite go there, but Here's what it looks like. So if you don't have the book, you know, the other thing I would say is if you've got books on how to do research in France, how to do research in Italy, sometimes they include a short handwriting key. It's not going to be as good as this though, because they've got stuff for English, German, which we just did, and when they say to the German, when they go to the German page, they say, this example came from the book, reading German handwriting by Roger Minerva. Dutch documents, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and usually about this point is when I would depart, but we'll try it after we get through the rest of the slides and see if the internet has decided to cooperate. What is hidden in those are records extraction guides. And so these were written for people doing indexing of records extraction. And they contain explicit instructions for reading handwriting and getting the information out from vital records. They're the most specialized manuals I have seen, and I've been looking at this a lot of time. I've been looking at this, what do I do besides that German book, which is so good. This book is, the general handwriting book is not good. I need something in the middle of it that's specialized for each hand or each language. These books are good. So currently, as of this writing, note that, so this slide may change later. The BYU script tutorial page also has links to the extraction manuals for Italian, Scandinavian, French, and Spanish, except for Portuguese, where they actually have a whole book that says Basic Portuguese Paleography. And you'll notice from the Genealogical Department of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and gives you the number. So it's also in the library. I tried to go to FamilySearch.org and see if it was available in the books, and it decided it was copyright restricted. But if you go to the BYU site, which I would hope would pay attention to that sort of thing, it's not. Also, they used to link to it from the wiki of FamilySearch.org. Speaking of which, there are sections on reading handwriting, and they have instructional videos. In the wiki, it says, note, to view this video, please use Internet Explorer or Firefox as your web browser. I think it wants Flash. I tried this at work where IT makes sure they're into everything we install on our computers, and we don't have Flash. The URL is down there, but if you just go to Family Search, and there's a category there that says language and handwriting. So let's see if we've got anything there. Okay, what time are we into? It's about 3 o'clock right now. So, does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, let's see if I can get the internet to play for us. I tried it out there in the hall, but sometimes signals are kind of interesting. It'll work in one room, but not the other. So we'll see. We've also, I could always go to the Paleography site. There you're getting into secretary hand, so if you go there and get that PDF, it'll give you these samples for secretary hand. It says this sheet displays a complete set of uppercase and lowercase. Did we go to Family Search? Okay, try reloading. What's my signal like in here? Yay! Okay. So, language and handwriting. So, I like the categories on Wikipedia because they're sort of like a good table of contents, or any wiki style. This is Family Search. Does anyone use the wiki for Family Search at all?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to see those hands. Anyone use the Red Book or the Source? I like how they're laid out. I like how they work, but my last printed edition of the Red Book is fairly old, and I don't know if they've done another one. And the URLs in it don't work anymore. Family Search, they do a better job of updating their URLs. So sometimes with the Red Book, I have to say, I'm looking for this index on Google, and that will give me the right URL. These should be fairly good. So I might go to the BYU script tutorial page, and you'll get that part again, which would fill out the rest of the talk. So you've got letter writing guides. These things are actually how to write letters to various registrars. I wouldn't worry about that. But if you go to, say, Denmark language and handwriting, let's see if that'll be nice. This is from our friends at T-Mobile. We switched from Verizon for customer service reasons, but I've noticed it's a little bit slower. Okay, there we go. And it also probably, if we were outside, you'd see it by now. Okay, there we go. Genealogical words and Danish research subcategories. Word list, christening word list, encyclopedias and dictionaries. Denmark handwriting examples. So if you're like, you never talked about the handwriting in Denmark, I thought this was European handwriting, go here. This is about the big one. I figured folks would come for German, and because it's so unique and has 4 S's and that kind of thing. So choose a link according to the record type, birth and christening, parish registers pre-1814. Let's see what it does. Since my internet is being sluggish, I'm not going to try and open up a bunch of tabs at once. Or maybe, while that does its thing, I will try going back, okay, to the BYU site and see if I get that live and see if I won't get this fighting with me or that one. Come on, BYU site. It could be it's more, the more graphics it takes to load. So the other thing he has is Gothic cursive on here. Okay, there we go, home. Nope, not there yet. So this PDF is a good place to go if you don't have anything else at the moment, but if you go to the BYU, there we go. So let's say, I'm gonna go with German just because, let's see if they fix that part of it. The German site actually had a little sidebar that said tools and techniques, and that said the best way to read the old German script is to write the old German script, and had a small thing about teaching you calligraphy. Okay, there we go. What is old? Let's see, techniques and tools. Notice a lot of these are kind of gray, and techniques and tools is no longer out. I swear on Monday it was gray and live, and now it's not anymore. But so for each of these, they'll have techniques and tools, not always, names, common terms, basic guidelines, sample document, full chart of the alphabet, Gothic handwriting, Gothic typefaces, documents, and exercises you can do. So in the teach yourself portion of this lecture, I would certainly go here. Let's try a different one. Let's say Italian, since it's playing nicely for us mostly at the moment. Okay, there, it's got that big map of Italy. It'll take a while to load. Techniques and tools. I've also noticed a lot of that has under construction. So sometimes if you go away, we'll go back, reading of the handwriting, abbreviations, Italian surnames, Italian handwriting, record types, browse by year, and usually under additional resources there is where you'll find the records extraction guides. FamilySearch had a little bit of link to them on their wiki, but they said, you know, that these PDFs were available and they're not right now. Check back